Hello, I wanted to share another video with you guys, which is life is so much easier with God. Apart from my last video, which was a little disparaging, the Lord is like kind of put something else in my heart. That the walk with God, even though it has its perils, it has its blessings, right? It has its upsides, and like it's really the fruits of the spirit, and the spiritual blessings that come. And from my understanding, a lot of the promises of God are fulfilled in spiritual means, where I don't want to rant about material possessions or anything like that. That's not the idea of this video, but Jesus said, "Seek ye kingdom first, and all these things shall be added," right? And seek his kingdom and his righteousness. That if we live in a proper manner, right, we live in accordance to the way God designed us, then material stuff in that just comes as a byproduct of living within that space. Because people, how would I say this? We all can recognize godliness, right? We can all recognize what is honorable, like, because I get into these discussions with people that are very heady and intellectual, and as is most people today, because we're in the information age. We have lots of knowledge at our disposal, and this comes with its virtues and vices. Still can't even say it. Virtues and vices, and where was I going with this? 27, I already get lost in my thinking. Virtues and vices that this what I see is recently stemming from somebody I've been talking to, but a moral relativity where there is no place on what we're going to define as good and true, but more of like we're going to jump around and say that it's all subjective and nothing is good and true, like that can be pinpointed, but it's all a perception. And this has its sand of truth, right? It has its little pebble of truth, but it goes back to if we don't stand for something, we fall for everything. And if we don't stand up for God, we don't stand up for the righteousness, right? Righteousness of God, not then we're subject to fall for everything. And not saying that people that are very rational and that are going to fall for everything, but there's no placeholder on, there's no rock, right? And I think when I think of Jesus talking about building your foundation on the rock, it's really building your foundation on God, building it on Jesus, right? Who came as a great like the perfect representation of what righteousness would look like before God in ourselves, in man. And like it's important to have that placeholder. Like me being, I like to be creative and I like to explore ideas, but the more I kind of walk with God, the more I see a need for a narrowing of manner, and because if if anybody's seeking to become truly righteous before God, it requires a severe discipline, right? A severe narrowing of one's mannerisms and conduct, and being very watchful on the way one speaks, right? Because Jesus says it's not what a man eats that defiles him, but what comes out of his mouth. So as children of God, we recognize that we cannot sit there and gossip and slander, because this will defile our spiritual state. For evil communication corrupts good manners, right? And for children of God, good manners is something natural that we have, right? That grace, and it can get defiled through the world. And sorry for my spinning there, talking about good manners. Through defilings of the world, right? And the world's like, what I've noticed, the world, wow, this light is beautiful. It's like this blue luminescent. Sorry, I can't show you guys, but forgive me losing track here. But the world, it comes, the world and the devil, right? The two greatest enemies to the child of God, right? To those walking the narrow path, because ultimately the world is a place where the devil has his stronghold among people, and he's going to use people, or he's going to use situations against you, to try to get you to fall. And if he can't get you in the world, then he's going to try to get you in your mind, and it's going to be a constant back and forth between those two. That's what I've noticed is, and granted, myself included, he gets me sometimes, right? But you start to learn where he's getting you, and so you got to strategize against him, and use God on your side, and use prayer and all those things that are at your disposal. And especially if you've been already chosen by God to be one of his people, you have him on your side, but he will test you, right? And it's hard. It is truly hard when we're in the middle of a battle to see God's face or to feel his presence, because in a sense he's still there, but he leaves us on our own to not like abandons us, but he creates like some distance to challenge us, right? To strengthen us, to see that when the trials do come, and the storms do, come against us, that we will persevere and we will stand righteous. And man, I go back to the book of Job a lot, because I think it's just a monumental story that the Lord has placed in the Bible, of what long suffering looks like. And it's such a chief virtue where, especially in this day and age of comfort and of ease, long suffering for God, right? Going out there and looking foolish on behalf of God, right? Whether it be, preaching the gospel, right? Preaching the gospel and being scoffed at and mocked and laughed at. How many are willing to long suffer for the Lord, right? And he did it for us, right? He did it for us. He did it on the cross, which is a greater feat than any of us could possibly do. Not that our works won't be glorified in front of the Father, but recognize that who we're serving, right? And and that situation on the cross is all rooted in love, and that's really where our work should be based in, right? They never should be based in self-glorification or trying to get right with God or any of these things, because Jesus already made us right with God. It's just up for us to be obedient to God, right? Just to say that that relationship has been restored, but to maintain that relationship, just like you would with any friend or lover. Um, excuse me. That it would be maintained and restored and ultimately maintained, right? And you know, because like, what relationship is more important than the one who has control over your soul, right? The one who gave you life, that gives you breath, that beats your heart. Um, should he not be glorified first before we do anything for ourselves, right? Um, not saying that um, you shouldn't care for yourself, but love the creator more than the creation, and you are the creation. So if you love yourself more than God, then in turn you're loving the creation more than the creator. And I preach this mainly, just a little better view. I preach this mainly because it's something I've struggled with, right? And that I see in Western culture is this glorification of self-love. And not that caring for yourself is a bad thing, but we have to put God where God belongs, which is above, right? That we are creators too, right? We are, in a sense, little gods, right? But we're like little, right? Children of God. We are little manifestations of God, but we are not the ruler, right? Yeah, we're just not, and the argument I always place against that is, right, can we make it rain? Can we make it snow? Do we have control over the weather? Um, there's just things out of our control that we cannot control. And if we were completely God, well, wouldn't we be able to do that? Um, and I believe Jesus, right, through being in such communion with God, right, that God anointed him the power to stop a storm, right, that was raging. And just to kind of, um, glorify God himself, right, to glorify God through the Son. Um, but unless we are at that level um, with the Almighty God, right, we're not going to be able to do that. It, Most of the time, it's just a vain deception from the devil, saying that you should exalt yourself to the position of God, and because you start to kind of feel that presence of power, right? Because the presence of feeling that oneness and of God within you is a presence of power, but we have two options with that power, right? We have altruism, or we have corruption, of evil, of wickedness, and um, and most of the time, by the world standards, being altruistic is foolish, right? Is that we sacrifice ourselves for others and the glory of God. And that's what it is. We give up a lot of things of the world to glorify God, instead of taking that knowledge of that we are little gods in a sense, right? We are um, little versions, and running with that, and saying, well, now I can do whatever I want. I have power, and you do have power. That is true, right? We all have power, but we must take that power and choose to do good with it. Um, and 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 it's the harder the feat, but you will be rewarded, and it will be within the kingdom of heaven, right? It will be with God and all His saints, and so those are the eternal promises. Is that um, we give up the world now for a greater world to come, and again, this is foolish in the ways of the world, and I think. Um, just looking back on a lot of the ways that I thought before being saved, and um, I would remark all of this is nonsense, is foolishness, and um, that we got like this is it, right? This is the only life, but um, praise the Lord that He gave me a greater truth and a greater knowledge um, to understanding, really, just a greater understanding, because that's really what it is, and yeah, man, it's just like not meaning to hip out, but like you know, God is really beautiful. God is God, and His glory is beyond our understanding. Um, I only get glimpses of it, only glimpses in times. My space is running out, but glimpses of the true glory of God, right? And when I'm in His presence, and when I'm broken down before Him, and I get few insights, and it's usually how um, my encounters with Him go, and then also I've heard other people kind of describe things of like watching this guy talking about Jesus, and he said his face kept on shifting, it kept on shape shifting, and he couldn't get a clear recollection, and it's kind of how like our knowledge of God is that it's like this ungraspable thing, but it's there, but we can't fully conceptualize it because it's too it, it it's too much for our limited understanding to comprehend what God really is, because we can't we cannot like unless we're in heaven itself, and we've come out of the body, and or we've gotten to the relationship that Jesus was in with Him, right, where we're doing His will, and we're listening, and to all of His guidance, and um, yeah, yeah. Um, but that was it. It's raining out, which is very peaceful and nice, and I thank you all for joining me and watching this video. Um, yeah, despite everything, God is always good. Not still, but always. He's always good, always faithful. And if you have a calling, if He's called you to do something and it seems bizarre, I would urge you to do it. Right? Take that leap, um, because the blessings are on the other end, and um, it may be physically hard, right, and mentally stressful, but spiritually you'll be at rest, and the matters of your soul are more important, right? Those are the matters that transcend um, everything, everything that transcend this world. So, yeah. All right, stay tuned. Stay tuned. Love you guys. See ya.